Animation has been a part of my life since I was a kid. In fact, I still remember hopping off the school bus and running home to watch Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds with my brother. Whether it's 3D, stop motion, or 2D animation, they all serve as great mediums for storytelling, often able to create scenes and visuals that live-action films really can't do. And to be honest, animation is something I've always wanted to do. But where would I start? How do I start? Which form should I create? So, after a bit of brainstorming, I came up with an idea. I wanted to learn 2D animation in 5 days, and this is that story. So, day 1, my main goal for the day was figuring out where and how to start animating. I didn't really have any expectations, I just wanted to start somewhere. So the first question is, what software should I use? And yes, I know you can animate on paper, which is totally valid, but to be honest, that is just way harder and way more time consuming than what I need it to be. So no, I will not be doing my animation on paper. No thank you. Moving on, there are tons of animating softwares out there, and the internet being the internet, everyone had an opinion on which one they thought was best. But for me, there was only one requirement. It had to be free. So, after looking through some softwares, I ended up settling on one called Blender, which is actually really well known, and you may have heard or even used this before, just like me when I was looking into 3D modeling a while back. But I didn't know it had an animating part to it as well. So, after I finished downloading Blender, I looked up a YouTube video to explain how to use the software, which is where I found this video by Jesse J. Jones, which was honestly so helpful that it made using Blender way less annoying. Not to say that I never got annoyed, because there were times where the software was testing my limits and my patience, and made me want to throw my computer out the window. Alright, now that I've gotten a software and figured out how to use it, I need to start animating. So, what am I going to animate? Well, to be honest, I just animated a little blob. Because to me, it was simple and allowed me to mess around and get a feel for the process. So, after an hour and a half of animating, I had finished my first project, which was 6 seconds long. In case you didn't know, animating takes ages just to finish a few seconds of video. So yeah, time consuming. And to be honest, I thought it was pretty good. It didn't go horribly wrong and the animation actually worked. And being pretty tired, I decided to take a break after this. A few hours later, I sat back down and decided to start animating another idea. I wanted to have a guy standing there, fly away. Pretty simple and honestly seemed pretty doable to me. So I got started, and while working on this project, I wanted to experiment with eye movements, which ended up going fine. In fact, I would later use this in another project down the line. After another hour and a half, I was done with an 8-second video. I mean, at least it's 2 more seconds. Anyways, after closing Blender and shutting down my computer, I was officially done with day 1. On to day 2. After day 1, I'm feeling pretty good coming into it, and I had one goal on my mind that I wanted to do: walking cycles. Now to me, I thought of this as a pretty important part of animating, because if my character can't walk, how am I supposed to tell a story? It just seemed necessary in order to make anything happen. So I searched the internet once more and found this video by Dan Root Animation Tips, which was phenomenal in teaching me how walk cycles worked. To explain this simply, there are 4 frames in the walk cycle, which when repeated make the character look as if they are walking. So to practice this, I followed along and made the animation with the video, which went well as the advice and tips he gave made a lot of sense and my result turned out great. Now, to see if I'd really learned this, I opened a new file to make my own walking cycle from scratch, not looking at the video or my previous attempt. And to be honest, this also went really smooth. I had done it surprisingly well, and I was thinking the whole time that it was going to be way off. However, this was also an amazing investment because I used walking cycles in almost all of my future animations. And once again, I took a break after this because combined I had spent over 2 hours working on both of these. Coming back, I sat down and locked in, spending another 2 hours on an animation I ended up calling Nightmare. Now, this is a project where I had a pretty clear idea of what I wanted going in, and then I just totally lost that and made whatever came to my brain. So, enjoy. Honestly, this project went pretty smooth, with a few hiccups, but it taught me a lot about the software and I felt like I was making progress. So, it being after midnight now, I went to bed ready for day 3. Waking up on day 3, I was feeling pretty good. I was learning the things I needed to and my animations were not horrible. Granted, they don't look gorgeous like a Studio Ghibli film would, but this is my first time drawing with a mouse, and I don't consider myself the best artist out there. But for what I can do, yeah, this is pretty good. So I decided that today was the day I wanted to try adding color into my animations and make some longer sequences. First up, I wanted to have one character push another off a cliff, which seems like a pretty simple idea. However, I did not realizing that adding color in multiple scenes would be dramatically more time consuming and confusing. So together this project ended up taking me over 2.5 hours to finish. Although this was the longest animation I had made, sitting at around 28 seconds, which is way more when I look back at my 6-second animation back from day 1. To be honest, I thought I would be done for the day after this, but I ended up sitting back down around 10 p.m. and started working on another project. This time I wanted my character to interact with the background, so I made him shrink the moon, like Gru from Despicable Me. And yes, this project had some issues that I could not really figure out how to fix, but overall it went smooth as well, and I even played around with some effects. Feeling good about the 2 projects I had made that day, I went to sleep feeling pretty prepared for day 4. Now, day 4 was an interesting day because I ended up having to spend most of the day packing because I was going to school soon. So I didn't have much time to animate and ended up only finishing one project for the day. That project was based around the idea of a close-up of someone's face, and I finished this in about 2 hours, which was pretty average for me at this point. Also, I hit around 20 hours on Blender at this point, which for 4 days felt pretty good. Don't worry though, I had an idea for day 5. Waking up on day 5, I knew I wanted to do something different. So I texted one of my friends, Dylan, to see if he'd be down to help me. So you might be wondering, why do I need a person to help me? Well, I thought it would be a fun idea to have us record some dialogue for me to then animate to, which is what we did. So Dylan came over, I animated, we recorded some lines, and then I animated again, totaling at around 3 hours-ish. And to be honest, this did not go as well as I had hoped. But it turned out okay. I think the main issue is that I animated it without the specific audio in mind, so it doesn't quite fit perfectly. But nonetheless, it was still fun to make. And after I finished this project, I noticed it was past midnight and that my 5 days were officially over. So, did I learn 2D animation? To this, I would say yes. However, I think it's a bit more complicated than that, as by doing this, I learned that animation is way more complex and time consuming than I first thought, as it is quite humbling to have over an hour of work turn into a 6-second video. Now, I will say I knew going into this that it would take a lot of skill and time in order to make animation, but now I understand what that feels like, obviously to a lesser extent. Would I recommend this to viewers? Honestly, yeah, go for it. I thought this was really fun and taught me a lot about what goes into creating animation and gave me a greater appreciation for it as a whole. Overall, I'd say animating can be really fun and rewarding, but at the same time requires a lot of tedious work and patience. Anyways, that about wraps up this video. If you all enjoyed, consider subscribing so you don't miss my future uploads. Also, if you have any ideas for other things I can learn, leave a comment down below. Thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next video.
It's time to go freaky beaky mode.
You're not the only one who has true power. It's time to unlock mine.